I did it. I finally did it. I've beaten this game. I finished Persona 5 after 123 hours and 20 minutes. I'm done with this game. It's been a journey and a half. 2 journeys to round it up. A journey of the mind, a journey of the feels, a journey of the patience. Oh, so much patience. If I had to summarize my run with this game, I'd say that I was mostly wrestling with wrath and impatience and frustration over the plot and the theming of the game, which were nothing short but incompetently made. I'm sorry to say it, but the story in this game is not really good. The characters are likable, but they don't get much above their initial archetypes. They are bidimensional at best. Still, they have their own strengths. I won't deny that. Overall, the writing was pretty phoned in and transparent, and the theming, especially the application of the 7 deadly sins, was absolutely embarrassing. I have never come across a game, I've never come across a story in which the people who made it could not even get the names of the 7 deadly sins right. Never mind how they were applied to their individual palaces and how really tacked on they felt within the narrative. They did not even get some of the names right. They confused jealousy with envy. They called it jealousy instead of envy, which are 2 different things, by the way. They confused pride with vanity. Or rather, it should be more appropriate to say that they added vanity instead of pride, which is something that stems from pride, but then they went on to have pride regardless, which means they have taken out one of the 7 deadly sins from the 7 deadly sins. They've taken out wrath. Except they didn't, because wrath shows up in one way or the other for the final boss. So all of this is a bit anger-inducing. I was pretty angry for the past 20 to 30 hours of the game or so. The game had its good moments, especially the 4th palace. That is my favorite moment of the game. That is basically my only truly favorite moment of the game. If all the game was like the 4th palace and everything around it, surrounding the narrative and the development of a specific character, then I would have probably liked this venture more than I actually ended up doing at the end. Because, yes, this was so frustrating. I've said this before, but it's worth reiterating. Emotionally speaking, this was one of the most draining experiences in my entertainment perusing life, so to speak. And not for the right reasons. I was not very emotionally invested in anything that was going on because the writing was so bad, and when it comes down to it, nothing about the story really worked out the way it was intended to. So by the end of it, I was pretty much drained and devoid of any dams to give, emotionally numb. It doesn't help that the final boss battle was pretty disappointing for various reasons, one of which being that the soundtrack for it was absolutely forgettable. And for a game that's praised all over the world for having an excellent soundtrack, I have to say, there is not much in terms of variety in this game. The few songs that it has are good, but when you hear the same 4 songs for 120 hours constantly, you tend to go crazy a little bit. This is something that puzzles me more than anything else this game threw at me, never mind the obvious twist that was not a twist. And if you play this game, you know of what I'm talking about, but I'm not getting into spoilers territory yet. Can anybody please explain to me this? Can anybody please explain to me why did Sojiro have to give me his underwear as a gift for acing my finals? Can anybody explain that to me? And don't say something like, oh well, it's Japan, lol. No, that's the Ross Ferris answer, because that's literally the answer he gave me over at the Skype chat. And you know what? I'm going to reserve all of my criticisms and judgments, and let me tell you, I'm going to be very judgmental and critical. I'm going to be the judge confidant in that regard. For when I get together with said Ross Ferris and we shall discuss this game properly, dissecting it, character-wise, plot-wise, theming-wise, all of the good stuff. For now, I just want to get across my current emotional state after surviving, yes, that's the right word I think, surviving that journey into hell, the hell that is Persona 5, the Persona 5 hole. In fact, you know what? Let me explain how I feel using the same metaphors that the game likes to use, the same really obvious, painfully obvious visual metaphors that the game likes to throw towards my general direction. Right now, I have a palace, and my palace is a long, high up hole. It's like a hole in the ground that goes on till the center of the earth. The treasure is at the very end of the hole, and that treasure is the copy of the game itself. So this whole hole is a representation of my inability to escape the metaphorical hole that is Persona 5. Because once you fall in, you never get out. Isn't that clever? Yes, because that's pretty much the level of writing in this game. Except even worse in some cases, but anyway. I've been through quite a lot of emotions. At first, like the first few hours, about 20 to 30 initial hours, it was a mixture of curiosity and frustration. Curiosity over seeing what kind of madness might pop out next. Frustration because the writing, as I said before, was really overrated. Considering all the hype that this game and this whole series gets from fans. I became really emotionally invested by the time the fourth palace comes around, because it was completely different from anything else. It takes a break from the overarching plot, and because it takes a break from the plot, it gets good, ironically. And then there were the final hours, in which it was mostly me nitpicking everything that this game had to offer because of how everything was pissing me off. And that's pretty much it. And by the end of it, I was drained. Although, I'll say this. In spite of everything not working out for me, in spite of me ending up addicted heavily on a game that I was not really fully enjoying for about, I don't know, 2 weeks, a month, I don't know, a long time. In spite of all that, that ending felt so nice. And the music of the end credits was soothing to my wounded soul. So, you know what, in spite of all my gripes, which I'll get right into once the time is right. Right now is not the right time, but the time will come. Don't worry about that. In spite of all my gripes, I was elated at the end of it. And not just because I finally finished this game, although actually, come to think of it, it is mostly because I finished this game that I was elated. I was happy, I'm done, I'm free from the hole that is Persona 5, and that is the end of my stage, if you will. Oh, by the way, I'd say that the boss of my palace would look like a blob of meat and bones with a anime face on top of it. Isn't that clever? But anyway. DLC, guys. DLC ideas. But anyway, yes, I was happy, finally being freed from the curse, but I was also satisfied because that ending felt so nice. It wasn't anything special, but one particular element of it, specifically Morgana trying to fix the van, was so nice, was so endearing, that it put me in a good mood, and I did leave out from the hall with a good mood. Which, you know, it's more than I can say about the vast majority of this game, experience-wise. At the end of it, in spite of everything, I was in a good mood. And now, at some point, I will get to retrieve my wrath, my bad mood, to properly explain what doesn't work about this game. Which is almost everything, to be honest. I didn't like the story, but I think the gameplay and the premise overall has a great potential. It just didn't live up to the very high expectations that this game inevitably has after being into development hell for 8 years, essentially. But anyway, I maxed out almost all of my social stats, which is a dreadfully ironic sentence, I realize, because this game kills your social life. I have, like I said, almost all of my stats maxed out, except guts. I could not max out guts. Not for lack of trying, mind you. Also, I've also maxed out my confidant relationships with Sun, Moon, Empress, or was it Priestess? You know, Haru, basically. And Makoto's. Oh yes, Futaba. That's pretty much it. I'd say I did fine, considering it's my first playthrough of the game. I'm level 76, I think. I can't remember right now, it's all a blur. But there you go, this is my very first experience with the series. It's my first playthrough of Persona 5. I don't know if I'll ever bother to do a +1. Honestly, right now I need to get out of my figurative basement, even though I don't live in a basement, but you get the metaphor, because the metaphor is obvious, damn you game! And I need to do other things. Making more videos, which I realize I didn't make many as much as I used to because of this addiction, if you don't count the one I'm making right now. So yes, look forward to hear my opinionated opinion on Persona 5 along with my colleague and friend Ross Ferris once we go through other games of the Persona series, because we're planning to do a whole retrospective in that regard. Look forward to that. I most certainly am. I might regret this. Thank you for listening and tuning in to listen to this, my venting about P5. Also a sort of update, if you will. Because that's the kind of guy I am. A guy who single-mindedly focuses on something and does nothing else for 2 weeks. Yeah, go me. Well, it would seem I have completed my rehabilitation. I shall now bid you goodbye. Farewell, you tricksters. So silly.